Welcome to the Bottle Poppin' Podcast, where Meg and Heather share their love for oils, friendship, and entrepreneurship. Let's get it poppin'.
Hey everyone, this is Meg.
Hi there, this is Heather.
And we are the Bottle Poppin' Podcast. So Heather, what are we popping open today?
We're popping open a bottle of peace.
All
this
right.
is the reassuring blend.
Mm-hmm. And first impression?
I did not like this oil when I first started smelling it way back when. This was not a favorite of mine. I've had this one for a really long time because I heard it was good for calming and relaxation, feeling peaceful. There's a couple oils in this that are not my favorite. I don't think that I can necessarily smell them when I smell this, but it feels, this is going to sound terrible. I hope nobody's offended by the way I smell this. It smells like somebody is wearing a lot of perfume to cover up smoke.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Do you smell the smoke in it?
It smells like perfume covered up smoke.
That's so funny.
You don't smell that, obviously.
I don't smell it, but I think that's because this has one of my favorite essential oils in it. And so that's what stands out to me, which is vetiver. And is that the number one? Is that the first oil listed?
It is. So the ingredients in this one are vetiver, lavender, ylang ylang, frankincense, clary sage, marjoram, labdanum, and spearmint.
So I do think it has a lot of oils that are kind of musky. And
Yes.
so maybe that's why as well. And vetiver is definitely a musky oil.
And I love vetiver. I do love vetiver.
Me
I
too.
don't love ylang ylang and clary sage. So maybe that's what I'm getting the most of.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, the aromatic description that doTERRA uses is sweet, rich, minty. I get none of those.
Especially minty.
Yeah.
I mean, it does have mint oil in it, but interesting.
I smell zero mint.
Yeah. So wait,
Do you-
sweet, something
Rich.
I smell the rich.
Yeah. It smells deep, rich. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Do you like the smell of this one?
I do. I mean, it's definitely not my favorite oil, but I like the smell of it. But again, I like it because I can smell the vetiver, and the vetiver, I just love the smell of vetiver. I think vetiver smells like a really expensive perfume. And which is funny too, because it's not even the type of perfume when I used to wear perfume that I would necessarily wear, but that's what it reminds me of, is an expensive perfume. So, and then just vetiver has been life-changing for me and my sleep, and therefore it's a smell that I smell and I feel good. I feel calm. I feel peaceful. So the name definitely makes sense to me.
I completely agree with everything you said about vetiver, but I would never reach for this oil because of the vetiver. I would just go for the vetiver. But yes, as soon as my body smells vetiver, it mentally knows that it's time to relax. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I will say, peace is one of the oils that, even though the smell was not something I was drawn to when I first got it, there have been many a times over the last several years where when I'm struggling with not feeling at peace, I will go reach for this oil, and it does relax me when I smell it. And there are times that when I need that, it works for what it's supposed to do, for sure. And then the smell smells better. I don't know if it's different or less, but it's better when I need it.
Interesting. So this one comes in both the 5 milliliter bottle, so pure, and then it also comes in a roller bottle. And so that's got fractionated coconut oil added to it. This is one of my favorite oils to travel with. And so I don't use it on a regular basis for sleep when I'm at home. But when I travel, it's my favorite oil to help me with sleep because it's got these oils that help with sleep, but it also like brings comfort. And I guess that since it's the reassuring blend, it like reassures me that I'm in a safe space and helps me fall asleep easier as well. And I love the roller of this for travel specifically.
I like that. That's good. My daughter actually uses Peace and then the Calmer from the kids line every single night before bed, but they're both rollers.
Yeah.
But she's got her placement that she puts it. Peace always goes on her chest and calmer goes on her wrist. And that is her routine. And, if she's in bed and hasn't put them on, I'll say, did you want any oils? And she'll say peace and calmer. And I bring them to her and peace goes on her chest, calmer goes on her wrist every single time.
That's funny. Like mother, like daughter, y'all have your specific places you apply them.
Yes, we do.
I love that. Do you know how she came up with that? Like, was that something that you initially put them in those spots for her and now she keeps on using them?
I don't think so. I feel like if I'm putting oils on her, I tend to rub them on her back. They both have always applied them to their wrist if they're putting it on themselves. Mm-hmm. And I guess if I'm using something like Breathe or something like that, then I will apply it to her chest. So maybe just because it's so close for her to be able to smell, that felt natural for her. I'm not sure, actually.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So with this oil, obviously, we're talking a lot about sleep and calmness. This was interesting. It also helps with focus, which I don't know that I would have reached for that, except for, a calm mind does focus better. So maybe that's why. So one of the things I read, and this is like a applicable way to use this I thought was cool, is when you're going into a situation where maybe you feel a little bit uncomfortable or feel like you're going to be overwhelmed, it said to put a few drops in the palm of your hands, rub them together, cup them, breathe it in really deeply, and then rub it on the back of your neck. And that could really help put yourself in a more relaxed state to go into an uncomfortable situation. And I don't know, I just like the step-by-step. This is how this can help you. I think that's really cool.
I like that too. And I wouldn't think about it helping with focus either. But one of the uses that doTERRA specifically lists is before taking a test or presenting to a large group. And I think you're right, just for that reason of just relaxing the mind so that you don't feel as nervous going into those situations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though this is one of those podcasts where I feel like both of us are sitting pretty still and pretty calm in our voices. And so it's funny how quickly an oil can work, because I've had a large coffee so far this morning. And I think prior to recording this a few minutes ago, we were both fairly upbeat with our speaking cadence. And now I feel like we're both just kind of down a notch in a good way. But when I think about presenting in front of a large group, sometimes I think you want to maintain that energy too. So I think if you were going to test this, you need to test it before you just do it.
Yeah, maybe it's more like maybe you don't need to be the keynote speaker who's nervous and use this. Maybe it's if you just get nervous being in crowds in general, this would be helpful for that situation. If you need to be on, don't do that. Which, just a side note, for those of you who've heard multiple episodes like this, we would love to hear from you if you also hear us like mellowing out during the podcast. So if you could give us that feedback, we would appreciate it.
Well, and I would just love feedback if other people feel the same way too. I mean, again, we've talked about how quickly oils can work, but specifically the calming oils, I feel like as soon as because we take off the lid and we both hold it up to our nose. And there are certain oils that we keep to our nose for several minutes as we're talking about them. And so you think about breathing this in for several minutes, that I'm shocked that within 5 minutes, my whole demeanor can just be calmer. I love it.
I love it too. And the interesting thing with this as well is we are literally not taking any oil out of the bottle.
Right.
And so this costs nothing, like when you break down the cost of a drop of oil, it's very minimal anyways. But here we're literally not even taking the oil out of the bottle. We're just smelling it and it has all of these impacts, which is pretty amazing.
Okay, so that is actually an interesting side note too, because when I said earlier that there are times that I have used peace when I feel like I need to feel at peace, I very, very rarely ever actually apply it to my body or put it into my hands. I am smelling it straight from the bottle. I take a few whiffs and then I put the lid back on and put it away. So that's an interesting point too. My daughter uses the roller. If I'm going to use peace, I'm simply smelling it through the bottle. So who knows how long this bottle has lasted me, but this is the way that I use peace.
That's so funny. It's cool that you are able to get the effects just from smelling it out of the bottle, because what I normally do is I like to put it on my hand and then put it on my chest. And I think for me, like just hand over my chest is calming, but even more so, I do a lot of tapping specifically on my chest. And that's super grounding and calming. And so if I can do tapping and then include the oil, even more so, I feel grounded.
Okay. And so what you just said about the tapping and feeling grounded, we said earlier that this is the reassurance blend. And I really like what the Essentials Emotions book has to say about it too, because it kind of ties into what you were just saying. So it says there's a human tendency to try to manufacture peace by controlling one's environment and in relationships, especially when one feels afraid. It's tempting to try to control others because it gives an artificial sense of order and safety. So Peace Blend affirms that there's no amount of control or effort that can fill the empty soul. So tapping is to ground us.
Yeah.
But then reaching for the peace helps you feel reassured. Tying that all together, I feel like that could really, I hate to keep using the word peace because it seems funny when it's the name of it too, but it feels like all of that together could really just kind of bring you some calm and some peace.
Yeah. And so cool too, because you're not, like you said, the environment is still there. You're not changing the environment. Like you still are able to deal with reality that sometimes life is hard, but now your body is in a state where it can manage that better, that reality better.
So ultimately, it's really helping with the mental shift of that. And we've talked about this before. For me, and I think for you too, oils are very much about the pause that is required when you go to use them. And so I think with oils, especially oils like Peace, when you're being intentional about choosing this oil, it's that pause of thinking about what oil do I need right now? And that's intuition based. You could use a reference book by all means. You could use a reference book, the emotion wheel. For me, it feels like intuition when I'm standing there and trying to decide what oil I need right that second. That pause allows you time to think about what you're trying to achieve. Use the oil. You're taking some deep breaths. So it allows the time for your mindset to shift. Like you said, we're not changing environment. We're shifting our mindset simply through inhaling or applying topically an essential oil. It's cool.
Yes. So good. So good. That makes me think Jack Canfield, who is the author and a speaker and amazing human being all around. In his book, Success Principles, he talks about this equation and it's E plus R equals O. And so event plus your response leads to your outcome. And so like you cannot control the event. You can't control what happens. Let's say we have an earthquake. Like we have no control over that. But our response to it is what's going to create the outcome. And so if we can take a pause, use the oil, put our mindset in the right place, then we could have this be an outcome that is good. And maybe earthquake is a hard one.
I see where you're going. And I actually use that analogy with my kids a lot, not about the earthquake. And I did not know about that equation. But we have a lot of conversations about life is not about what happens to you. It's how you react to it. Life is going to be hard. There are going to be hard things that happen. That is unavoidable. But how you deal with what happens to you is going to make or break what happens in the future.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So this oil and so many oils would be good for that.
Yeah. Well, and just last thing to kind of tie this all together, on doTERRA's page about peace, this last line really goes with everything we were just talking about. It says, everything turning out fine begins with believing it will. And a few drops of Peace Reassuring Blend.
I love that. So good. So good. All right. Well, we hope that y'all have enjoyed this episode. We'll have a brand new episode dropping next Friday. We have them every Friday. Please share this with friends and family who you think might need some extra reassurance and peace. We hope this helps them. We hope this helps you as well. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for tuning in. For more information, you can follow these bottle poppin' ladies at bottlepoppinpodcast.com. Tune in next week to learn about what bottle we're poppin'. Until next time, take care. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This podcast is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease.